All right, read the passage and answer the questions that follow. This is the second and final passage. You need to decide if it's fiction or nonfiction and make sure you annotate about 3 or 4 times on each page. Move over, Spider-Man. Here's Spider Goat by Jolie Allen. Making silk threads isn't just for spiders anymore. A special type of goat is doing it, too. Nubian goats look and act like any other playful, floppy-eared goats. But when they aren't playing, these goats are busy making spider silk. Spider silk is absolutely amazing. It's 5 times stronger than steel, but it's also very light and flexible. Because of this, scientists plan to use it to make some totally cool things. Imagine clothing that's as light as a cobweb, yet won't tear. Or fishing line and tennis racket strings that won't break. Doctors might be able to use spider silk for making tiny stitches in delicate eye surgery. But it could also be strong and flexible enough to replace some worn-out parts of the human body. The silk also could be used to build airplanes, buildings, and bridges, as well as create a tough coating for space stations. Because of all these possibilities, scientists have been searching for ways to make spider silk in huge quantities, and they have finally found the answer: Nubian goats. Scientists have studied spider silk for years. They tried to raise spiders on spider farms to collect silk from them, but the spiders didn't enjoy living so close to one another. Spiders like their own space, and when they don't get it, well, they make space by eating their neighbors. Goats, the scientists discovered, are much friendlier than spiders, and are also easier to work with. Because they're bigger, a few goats can produce more silk than a room full of spiders. The scientists chose Nubian goats for this job because they make milk at a younger age than many other goats. So the Nubian goats will make spider silk sooner and for longer periods of time. But how did the goats actually make the spider silk? That's what scientist Jeffrey Turner wanted to figure out when he taught animal science at McGill University in Montreal. He noticed that the body parts of spiders that make silk and the parts of goats that make milk are very much alike. Because of this, he figured that goats might be able to make spider silk. The idea excited him, and he started his own company in 1993 to do more research on how goats could do what spiders have been doing for years. Before we go to the next page, make sure you have annotated 3 or 4 things. You can pause the video to give you time to annotate. Eventually, Turner and his fellow scientists found a way to place spider genes in goats so that the genes fit nicely, like a guest in a comfortable hotel. Every living animal, including humans, has a set of genes inside of it that tells its body what to do. These genes are very, very tiny, but they hold lots of information on how to build parts of the body. A spider's genes contain instructions for making spider silk, and a goat's genes contain instructions for making milk. So by putting spider genes into goats, the goats then have the genes that tell their body how to make spider silk proteins. Proteins are the body's basic building blocks. Just as people have proteins in their bodies that make their hair, skin, and muscles, the goats now have special proteins for making spider silk. When the goats produce milk, the spider silk proteins are in it. But it looks just like regular milk. Scientists separate the proteins out of the milk by skimming off the fat and then sprinkling salt on it. The salt makes the spider silk proteins curdle into small clumps. These clumps are scooped out and water is added until the mixture has the thickness of maple syrup. This is spider silk, and it's ready to be spun. Next, the silk is taken to a spinning machine that copies the way spiders spin their silk. The secret to extra strong silk is in how the spiders spin it. They stretch the silk over and over again. The stretching makes all the protein building blocks line up, lock together, and form a strong but flexible band. When the giant spinning machine is finished, the silk threads are stronger than steel and as flexible as rubber, but they're also thinner than a human hair. Producing milk with spider proteins in it doesn't hurt the goats. Scientists did years of research to make sure the goats would be safe and healthy. The milk that's left after the spider proteins are removed can still be used as fertilizer on fields that grow feed for the goats. In 1998, Dr. Turner bought a farm in Canada for raising his spider silk goats, and they still live there today. The 1,000 goats that make spider silk are raised in a normal environment and are healthy, curious, and energetic, just like any other Nubian goats. Their owner gives them lots of space to roam and play. The goats particularly enjoy rolling down the farm's grassy hills, and they love listening to country music. Other music, such as rock music, has strange rhythms that make the goats jittery, but the steady beat of country music keeps them calm and happy. I wonder if they like the Itsy Bitsy Spider song. Alright, there is some empty space on your page right here, so pause the video and find it on your paper. This is where you're going to write your genre-based thinking job. So again, you need to decide if it's nonfiction with T and AOT, or if it's fiction with CSCRT. Pause the video and take some time to make sure you have annotations and a genre-based thinking job in this blank section. You should be finished reading, annotating, and doing a genre-based thinking job. Now on all the questions, I want you to listen to it, pause the video, and do testing strategies on your paper. Sometimes you'll have to flip back and look through the text for the answers. Number 8. The following item has 2 parts. Answer part A and then answer part B. Part A. What is the purpose of lines 4 through 12? A. To highlight the disadvantages of only spiders making silk. B. To describe how the goats make silk similar to spiders. C. To explain why scientists are trying to find a way to produce spider silk. D. To emphasize the discoveries scientists have made over the years. The author explains this purpose by showing A. Possible uses for spider silk. B. The popularity of spider silk. C. How easy spider silk is to use. D. How quickly spider silk can be developed. Once again, that was a 2-part question, so you need to pause the video and use testing strategies on part A and B. Number 9. Which statement best explains an advantage of using goats rather than spiders for the production of silk? A. Goats produce stronger silk than spiders do. B. Scientists can insert genes into goats but not into spiders. C. Spider proteins in goat milk can be spun into silk. D. Goats are bigger than spiders and are much easier to raise. Pause the video and use testing strategies. Number 10. What did Jeffrey Turner discover about using Nubian goats for possible silk production? A. Nubian goats already make a similar substance. B. Nubian goats have high amounts of protein in their milk. C. Nubian goats and spiders both prefer living in large groups. D. Nubian goats and spiders have body parts that are similar. Pause the video, use your testing strategies. Number 11. In the process described in lines 35 through 47, which step allows the threads to become strong enough for surgical procedures? A. The silk proteins are turned into clumps. B. The silk is stretched repeatedly. C. Salt is added to the goat's milk. D. Water is added to thin the clumps. Pause and use testing strategies. Number 12. Why are lines 55 through 59 important to the article? A. They suggest that the goats are unusual. B. They explain how the goats are kept busy. C, they explain that the goats are treated well. D, they explain that the goats are like humans. Pause, look back on these lines if you need to, and use your testing strategies. Number 13. Which statement best expresses a central idea of the article? A, Nubian goats produce better quality silk than spiders. B, spider silk is a complex substance that takes effort to make. C, Nubian goats have been genetically altered to produce spider silk. D, spider silk contains proteins that are similar to proteins in other living things. Use your testing strategies. Number 14. Which detail is most important to include in a summary of the article? A, scientists have made an attempt to gather silk from spiders living on farms. B, spider silk has qualities that can be used in many products. C, a scientist started a company to research goat silk. D, machines spin spider silk into thin threads. Again, use your testing strategies for this question. You have reached the end of the test. You still have a lot of time. So the first thing I want you to check is if you have enough annotations on every page. The second thing I want you to pause and check is if you have 2 genre-based thinking jobs. One should be fiction and one should be nonfiction. If you need to use the posters that are in Miss Collins' room, you can use them. The third thing I want you to check is if you have testing strategies for your questions. That's process of elimination, WHAM, and tagging your evidence in the text. And the last thing I want you to check is if you've answered all the questions and bubbled them in correctly. When you have finished these things, you can let Miss Collins or Miss Graham know.